Hello again and welcome back to Round 1 Super Rugby Review 2016 edition. We have had, man oh man, we have had some special rugby over the last couple of days. The opening weekend of the competition has been amazing. Some upsets, some blockbuster performances, some shocks, and of course the new teams coming into the competition and proving their worth straight off the buzzer. So as we did with the preview a few days ago, we're going to have a look back at the results from the just past weekend, have a look at what I thought might happen, have a look at what actually happened, and as I seem to have made myself scores in the preview, I've decided we're going to turn this into some kind of tipping competition. Of course, this sort of thing needs a good name, so for those of you out there who are good at naming things, get into it and let me know of a good name for what we could call this. But here's how it is going to work. If you remember the preview of Round 1 Super Rugby a few days ago, I named scores for all these matches. Now, what's going to happen? If I pick the right team, I'm going to give myself 1 point. If I get the margin between the teams altogether within 10 accumulated points, so if I'm out by 3 points on one side and 2 points on the other, I get another bonus point to my name. Also, if I get the score exactly dead on right, that's the winning team and the margin and the scores, I give myself a bonus 5 points. Now, of course, this is for you guys to join in with as well in the comments below. Makes it a little more exciting to watch these matches when you put your opinion on the line, like I'm going to be doing week in and week out. So, I've made my guesses. I'm going to take a look at these matches and see just how well or how badly I have done. Right, so the competition kicked off on Friday night in New Zealand with the Blues at home at Eden Park up against defending champions, the Highlanders. And I predicted before this game, Highlanders 32-19. Now, this match was interesting for a whole range of reasons, especially for New Zealand and All Blacks fans. There's a lot of matchups worth watching, the likes of Fekitoa versus Rennie Ranger, which I thought Fekitoa had the much better of performance than Rennie Ranger, who looked a little bit short of his step, but I think he's going to come up to speed. He really got involved a lot, did Rennie Ranger. But Fekitoa, he was aggressive, he was fierce, and he just smashed into everything he possibly could, including Rennie Ranger as well. Aaron Smith, I thought, for the Highlanders, was not at his best at all, and it showed with how the Highlanders actually did play throughout the game. They're always in touch, but just didn't seem to have that impetus that Aaron Smith generally gives the team. I think the Blues back row did dominate that most part of the game, controlled a lot of the flow around the match, especially the Highlanders' ball and the speed at which they could get through. Bryn Hall, I thought, was very good for the Blues as well. And the Highlanders seemed quite afraid to make subs for the sake of, you know, changing the match too far. It was that close. They were relying on the players they had on the field, and it didn't look like they really wanted to make those big calls that could win or lose ultimately the whole matchup. And while we're on the topic, straight off at first game of the season, do we miss the yellow cards? I mean, over the Rugby World Cup last year, this was a very hot topic. Yellow cards were dished out like candy to children at the dentist, and this is what we got exactly from Round 1 of Super Rugby. That was the real summary of that match for me. The yellow card's a big part of that game, as they always seem to be. The Highlanders couldn't deal with it, and ultimately that closed the game out for them. I don't know if I'm disappointed of how the Highlanders played. More, I expected something from the Blues, and they really did deliver. New coach, of course, Tana Umaga, and they showed that they've got the personnel to do it, and the coach can make a big difference. Full-time score was 33-31 to the Blues, who did get a very tight, very close win over the defending champions. So my prediction of 32-19, way out the window completely. Wrong team, wrong winner. The scoreline as well was miles wrong for that match. So that's 0 points for me. Game 1, Highlanders versus the Blues. Make our way into our second matchup, which is the Brumbies at home against the Hurricanes. And I think we got our first real insight of the impact Argentina are going to have on this competition when Thomas Kubeli scampered away for his first try and the first real glimpse of the Argentinian in the Brumbies colours. It was great to see him get his first try, but as I mentioned in the preview of this weekend's matches, the centres were going to be big, and I thought the Brumbies dominated in that area. Kurandrani just absolutely demolished the Mape every single time. Tamua and Kurandrani. Vince Arso had a little bit of brilliance near the end, but ultimately that centre pairing of the Brumbies was far too good for the Hurricanes. Stephen Moore was another one who had an absolutely fantastic game as well. He's played more games than most people would ever dream about. He is a real legend of Australian rugby, and really it was a domination from the Brumbies. They destroyed the Hurricanes in every department you look. They were just average, the Hurricanes. They didn't look like they knew what they wanted to do. They had no real direction, and they were just missing big time in action. The experience in the centres, that's where I think they really lost control of this game. And the Brumbies, boy oh boy, they look good. They look very, very good. I called the Brumbies out to win this one 27-12. They ended up winning 52. That's right, 52-10. So once again, my score prediction was so far out the window it didn't even matter. But I did get 1 point for the Brumbies taking out the win. Okay, match number 3 now of the weekend. Remember, we got 9 matches to get through. Woo! So it's absolute hectic stuff going on here. Jaguars up against the Cheetahs. First time we've seen the Jaguars. Now, this one, I think, had so much riding on it. This is just so important for the competition. And the Jaguars, wow, they really did get very excited. They got, all the nerves, all the butterflies were really, really in that team. And it showed from the outset as they were dished out yellow cards aplenty. The Cheetahs got off to a flying start, leading 24 points to 3 after 30 minutes. But we've already learned after just one game from the Jaguars that you do not discount this team. The Cheetahs were brilliant. They started off and they looked like they were going to blitz the game. But one man, and one very inspirational man, can make a big difference. That's Augustine Creevy. The man is an absolute monster. His performance from that point of the half an hour mark in the first half, simply outstanding. Man of the weekend. He was brilliant. Completely and utterly amazing. He scored a try of his own. He set up numerous chances for the rest of his team. The second half performance from the Jaguars was sublime. Landaho, he was teed up alongside Creevy as well. Both of those two were outstanding in very key positions as well. The hooker and the scrum half, that is where you really want to target your team. They've got two real talents there. This Jaguars side looks so good. Sanchez was his clinical best as well. Of course, getting that drop goal in about the 70-minute mark, that really put that gap out to 4 points and gave that hope that the Cheetahs had that they could possibly sneak it. Completely destroyed that from the boot of Sanchez. So a great performance from the Jaguars to come back from that. The Cheetahs showed that they could be a team that could do something special, but didn't put in anywhere near an 80-minute performance. And once the Jaguars calmed down, got their head about them, it was business as usual for them. I picked them to get a big win, 42-19. It didn't quite go that way, but in the end the Jaguars did win 34-33. I pick up myself 1 point, and I go to a massive total of 2. Right, we're into our fourth game of the weekend now, and it was, again, another team we were seeing for the very first time. The Sunwolves were up against the Lions. Now, this was, again, another massive match to see just how much the Sunwolves were going to contribute to the season, and really, it was the case of the same again. For the last 3 matches now, it was the hooker. We've seen Stephen Moore, Augustine Creevy, and now it was Shota Horia for the Sunwolves getting the first ever try for the franchise. Now, I talked about this in the preview. They just needed to get out there and they just needed to play. There's a lot of talk about this team, a lot of people putting them down, saying they were never going to be up to the standard of Super Rugby, never going to be good enough. But they got out there and they played the game, and you got to give them credit. They pushed the Lions all the way. And let's be completely fair about this. The Lions are not a bad team. It was great to see the support, a sold-out stadium for the Sunwolves as well. And I mean, these guys know the game. People that discount Japan as a nation that does not know the game of rugby, well, stop kidding yourself, because that, that's 20 years ago. Now this team, these people know, and they are very good at it as well, and they've showed that after just one game, you can see already that teams are not going to want to play the Sunwolves in round 12 or round 14 of this competition, because every week they're going to get better and better. They played a full 80-minute performance at a consistent level. They never gave up hope, but you got to give credit to the Lions more than anything here, because they put in a very professional performance. They played to the whistle, they played to full time, they got pushed, and they'll be the first to admit they got very, very pushed, but in the end, they did come away with what can you call it, but a professional win over the Sunwolves. Now, I thought that the Sunwolves would be very competitive, and I had the Lions to win by 8 points, 20 points to 12. In the end, full time, it was the Lions who did in fact win it 26 to 13. So I've got an overall points differential there of 7. So I pick up an extra point, getting the winner and getting within 10 points of the final score. 2 points to me. I double my tally. I'm on 4. Now we go back to New Zealand for our first match of Saturday night. A big one here for these two sides, the Crusaders and the Chiefs. Now, these teams have met quite a lot recently as well, and it was always expected this was going to be quite a match-up between these two New Zealand powerhouses, and we really got a spectacle from these two sides. It was very open, very expansive. The chances created were many as well. I thought the Crusaders front row played very, very well, and it was the first match where we've really seen a bit of the biffo brought back to the game as well. There's a lot of real handbags at dawn as well between the two sides. A lot of, just that nitty under your skin stuff from the two sides. There was a lot of contentious arguments about the new maul rule as well, with the ball having to be at the back. A lot of tries over this weekend were scored through this rule. Whether they were legal or not, I don't know if anyone's really got their head around how that works. Aaron Cruden made his return. I thought he was decent. Not his best by any means of the imagination, but he was decent. Sam Cane had a very, very good match, but there was one man who stood out for the Chiefs, Damian McKenzie. Well, he's just that little fly that just does not go away, and that's what happened for the Crusaders. He was just too good overall that match. The Chiefs had the overall game, and I thought the Crusaders looked a bit out of touch. Players like Nemani Ndolo, who they rely on to be key players and the way they play, weren't quite at that level. I called the Crusaders 31-29. Full-time result was the Chiefs 27-21. I have 0 points from that match. My points go nowhere. I'm still on 4. We made our way over to Australia for our next match of this marathon of a night that was Saturday, and it was the Waratahs versus the Reds. Now, on paper, the Waratahs should always be destroying the Reds here, and well, what happened was very much a lot to learn about these two sides. The Reds, what impressed me the most about them, and I put this on Twitter as well, their attacking line was so deep. It was so deep, the way they were running deeper and deeper and deeper as the passes went out. They'll go back 20-25 metres before it would get to the outside centre and the winger. It was a really, really scary thing to watch, because you know if one man got spot tackled, they lose a lot of metres, and they've got forwards going backwards, which they do not like to do. But when it come off, it looked so good. It looked oh so good from the Reds, and it was something that was a joy to behold, with being a team which, you know, I was a neutral at best for that match, you know, and to see that deep attacking backline was just really interesting from the Reds. Didn't really work out for them though, because they had very little ball to actually attack with. It was another game where we've seen some more yellow cards, and we've seen our first look at the Japanese fullback Goromaru, and isn't he just a fantastic kicker of the ball? I mean, he didn't get every single shot he took, but he just looks so smooth and so natural, and it just flies through the air without any concern whatsoever. The Waratahs dominated the game. They dominated the first half and the breakdown, but what on earth happened to them in the second half, I am not sure. They completely shut off, but the Reds, they just didn't have it in them. They didn't seem to have any penetration through their backline, and they couldn't really get going into the game. The second half really was our first real look at what the bad side of Super Rugby can be. It was a bit of a bore the second half. The Waratahs had almost an ungettable lead despite what the Reds tried, and they just couldn't find a way back into the game. The Waratahs sat on it, although they didn't really seem to want to score any more points themselves either. And in the end, they ran out 20-point winners, 30 points to 10. My pick was 38-16, also to the Waratahs. Of course, that puts me a good, 6 and 8, a good 14 points away from the actual score. So I don't get that second point on this occasion, but I pick up 1 for the correct winner. Okay, so we're still in Australia. We go across the island, if you can call it that. Controversial, to the Rebels versus the Force, and I thought this was going to be a really close game. And it was interesting too because the Rebels looked in trouble very early on, losing both of their fly halves, Debrasini and Harris, both going out to injury. Debrasini before the match even kicked off, which saw Harris come into the number 10 jumper. He only lasted 20 or so minutes before it was a young debutant, Hodge, who made his way to number 10. And what a great match he had of it as well. He kicked like a rocket. Boy, he sent that ball a long way when he had shots at goal. He ran very well and he made very good effort from what was almost a lost situation for the Rebels, losing 2 key players like that. It was a very scrappy match though. There was a lot of errors, but 2 teams that looked like they really wanted to attack and score points and score tries. I thought in the preview that they might struggle with Braki on the wing, which is what happened as well. The Force didn't really have too much to attack with, but they did stay in the match. Despite really looking out of it, the scoreline didn't seem to get too far away from them. The game just didn't seem to have the explosiveness that those earlier games have with the key star players, but the Rebels and the Force, I think if they play a bit more attacking like they're trying to do, it could help them out in the season. Their defence, as we know from these 2 sides, very good. And the other thing from this match, of course, was the heat. Absolute ridiculous heat. In the last 15 minutes, the players were just falling over all over the place. Cramp and the likes was just setting in massively against these 2 teams. It really was a stop-start affair right at the end. The Rebels come away with the win. I picked the Rebels to win 24-22. In actual fact, it was 25-19. So I still get that bonus point as well. That gives me 2 points for that, and I'm looking pretty good now with another couple of points. That gives me 7 points now all together with still 2 games to go. So our last 2 matches, of course, were the Sharks versus the Kings, and I picked this one as a hammering. But what really happened out there in the first 10 minutes or so was the Kings showing the Sharks how it was done. They actually scored the first try of the match, and there was a lot of poor discipline from the Sharks, giving away silly penalties, chatting and talking crap throughout that early stage, and it looked like they could be in trouble. And I thought to myself, wow, the Sharks, they need to buck up their ideas here, because this could go very bad very quickly for them if they let the Kings get away. But to their credit, the Sharks always looked like they were in control, and they didn't get flustered despite the scores being quite even throughout the early stages. For the Kings, I thought Watts controlled the game very well, and the second row, Astor, I thought was quite good as well. But it was the big names in the Sharks team that really led them forward, especially Vili Leroux, who, well, we always thought, if he can hold the ball more, he could be a real attacking threat again like he used to be, and I think he did that quite well for the Sharks in this match. Peterson filled that number 10 jumper that was left by Lambie quite nicely. The Sharks built throughout that match. They were slow starters, but they really got going in the second half and just demolished any threat from the Kings. They started all right, the Kings, but really showed that they probably won't be up to the speed of the season. Now, if you can ever get close but no cigar, I think this is it right here. I predicted 44 points to 9, the Sharks to win this match. Now, this is where it gets me. The Sharks won 43-8. I was out by 1 point on each side. 1 point, which means I only get 1 point as well to go with the winner. But how close can you get without getting the extra 5 bonus points? So I could have been really rolling in the points there. But I take it away. Just 2 more to my total. That goes away to 9. I guess I can take it from that I get a point per match with 1 game still to go, which is always very good to take from the weekend. So last game of said weekend, the Stormers up against the Bulls. Now, I thought the Stormers would take this one. I thought they should take it quite easy, but you just never know if the Bulls, they seem to produce players that come from nowhere. They're a bit of the old, churning them out. Players that are good at Super Rugby level. And, well, if the previous games we've seen were a bit of the lower standard, the first half we've seen from the Stormers and the Bulls was everything but of that. Both sides seemed too scared to attack. They didn't want to chance their arm. They were happy to defend. It was a very slow, no-try first half from these two sides. Two teams that normally quite like to score tries. They just didn't want to go out there and throw the ball around and take their chances. But I think the Stormers have unearthed a nice little talent in the number 10 jumper. Robert de Fleur was very good, kicked well and controlled the game. But the second half come along where him and his Stormers buddies really opened things up. I think they might have got a bit of a rocket at the halftime break because they really stormed out of the halftime meeting there and they blitzed them in the second half. A key thing that I mentioned in the preview, of course, was the second row. Peter Steph, de Toit and Ebenezer Beef. They were monstrous. Ebenezer Beef picking up a try into Beanie as well. The hooker replacement for the Stormers grabbing one as well. But it was all about defence, not really coming off for the Bulls. The Stormers showed that they have that attacking intent, that attacking flair, that attacking ability that I predicted they would have to top their Africa Conference. Now, they won that match 33 points to 9. I picked 26 to 20 to the Stormers as well, so I get 1 point for predicting the Stormers to win that match. The margin, though, was quite far off the mark, but all in all, I've picked up myself 10 points from the opening 9 games of the competition. You know, if I thought about this before the preview, I would have been quite happy with that outcome. There were some great matches, the likes of the Jaguars and the Sunwolves, showing that they will compete at Super Rugby this year. They will not be pushovers. They will not let anyone walk over them, and that is great for the competition as well. I fear for Australia, the Reds, the Force, the Rebels, they looked way off the pace. The Waratahs' second half performance was disgraceful. They didn't look too convincing. On the other hand, the Brumbies looked amazing. For the New Zealand teams, I thought the Crusaders and the Chiefs pretty much cancelled each other out. In the end, they were both okay. The Highlanders seemed like they got surprised by the Blues, who looked quite good. But I want to see that from the Blues for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks to really be convinced. And the Hurricanes, they looked way out of their league. They looked disgraceful, and they need to patch things up super, super fast. In Africa, like I said, the Jaguars and the Sunwolves look like they'll compete. I think the Jaguars, and well, both of them really, and the Sunwolves will really step it up as the season goes on, because the experience is going to be amazing. I think the Jaguars will really push this competition hard throughout the year. And the other South African teams, the Stormers, looked very, very good. I think they could be one team to watch. And the Sharks, when they got going, they were very nice as well. The Bulls and the Kings could be a long season for them as well. The Bulls just didn't look like they knew how to attack, and the Kings, well, once they got shut out, it was good night and goodbye from them. The Lions and the Cheetahs, they could have a decent season. I'll be interested to see how the Lions and Cheetahs go against the Bulls, for instance. When that fixture comes around, I think they could be quite even, looking to be that side to pick up that third qualifier from the African conferences. But that is my time done and dusted for today. A quick look at these matches. I don't want these parts to go on for too long. Quick look at the matches, my scores, my results, my key points, and of course, what my predictions was and how they come out. Remember to have your say in the comments about who you thought was going to win. Be sure to catch the preview show before next weekend's game to leave your results below. I want to know how many points you all got from each week and see who's the better tipper out of me and you guys as well. It is on. Challenge is set down to you all. So get in there, get involved, and have your say as per always. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Hope you've enjoyed this look back at week 1. I'll be back in a couple of days for a preview of round 2. A little less matches. I think some teams got some buys, so that won't be too bad. But until then, thanks for watching. Don't forget that thumbs up if you've enjoyed, again, another look at the Super Rugby matches from the actual competitions. And I'll see you all next time. Until then, take care.